swap meet for some white t-shirts. Plus I just been paid, so let's roll up to our people for a skin fade and throw on the triple X as we exit. I gotta have that tight around the neck shit. I'm about to check this nagging guard, so we all mad, dog.
One day I want to ace my serve. One day I want to fill my...
If a man took testosterone therapy for 30 days, here is exactly how his body will transform.
Go. Aquaba, welcome. We hope you are well. We hope you are at your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength. We are glad that you are joining us for this week's episode of Our Ancestors' Voices. The topic today is, what is the All African People's Revolutionary Party? What do we do? What are we trying to accomplish? Who the heck are we? And how are we doing it? What is our program? So we are glad that you decided to join us today. I will be rolling solo. Shakura will not be with us today. She is taking care of another critically important assignment. So I ask your patience with me as we get through this hour, and she will be back with us next week. We give honor and respect to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. They are fighting for their rights for justice and human salvation, self-determination, and they have been doing this for 531 years, you all. So we cannot be impressed with a dying president of the United States in his last dying act to give clemency to Leonard Peltier. A man has been in prison almost 50 years for crimes that he certainly did not commit. So we're not impressed with that, and we don't recommend that you be impressed with that. Whatever struggles and challenges exist within the indigenous community around Leonard Peltier, they will resolve that. That's their business. It's not ours. But they didn't even have the decency to grant the man a pardon. He's not pardoned. They're still saying that he's guilty of the crime. It's just he's so ill, they allowed him to be released from prison so that he could spend whatever time he has left convalescing. That this is not, the bar is so low. This is not acceptable. So we give no honor and respect to an old cracker president that does something like that. The last act he does before he leaves office. And we give honor and respect to our African ancestors who are the very reason that we are, of course, here. Certainly, without question, we owe everything to their courageous struggle to advance our people collectively. So we're honored and glad that we have the opportunity to continue this struggle with the best energy and the most commitment that we possibly can muster. So as usual, we start with our introduction as to who we are. Our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored each week, same time, same place, by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, A-APRP. And A-APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party with our base in Africa. We're not based in New York or Los Angeles or Seattle. We're based in the national home of all people of African descent, all 2 billion of us scattered and suffering in the world today. Whether we know who we are or not is irrelevant. We are African people tied to Africa. As Africa goes, we will go. And so that's why for us, we have the objective of Pan-Africanism, which we define correctly as one unified socialist Africa, one unified socialist Africa. So we are solution-based. That's our solution. That's what we're fighting for. And we know that once achieved, it will take us a long way towards solving all of the problems that we have whether we speak English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, Swahili, Wolof, all of the problems that we face, one united socialist Africa we see as a solution to that. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's, if you're looking at a screen, his book, The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And that in that book, Nkrumah lays out that the strategy to achieve Pan-Africanism, revolutionary Pan-Africanism, is a unification of all of the revolutionary Pan-African formations on the ground throughout the African continent who agree with the objective of one unified socialist Africa. So that is our work, which we're going to talk about today specifically. And we really appreciate and enjoy that because we don't get the opportunity to talk about our work. Most people are just at a different point in terms of how they see the world and are not really at the point where they can really listen to what we're talking about. So we really appreciate these opportunities we have that are focused specifically on our work. We're very capable of explaining it. So we're glad that you're here to participate in that. And Our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and my biological and ideological daughter, Shakura. And as I mentioned, she will be absent just today as she handles some other important business. She will be returning next week. So to get us started, we'll just say again that our objective is Pan-Africanism, one unified socialist Africa. We see that as the solution to the problems that 2.5 billion African people face, scattered and suffering in 120 countries worldwide. And we say that the All African People's Revolutionary Party is a mass, meaning we want every African on earth. We don't care where you live, what language you speak, what your faith is, what your faith isn't. We don't care what gender you are. We don't care about any of that. If you are African, you belong to the African nation, and we know that we need every African for this task that we are embarking upon. And that's why we are the All African People's Revolutionary Party, not some African People's Revolutionary Party. We want every African. And that's our mission, and that is our work, you all. So we are a mass party. That means everybody. That's who we're striving to bring into this worldwide revolutionary Pan-African struggle. And we are revolutionary, which means that we want to completely transform the existing political, economic, and social order. We don't want to integrate with it. We don't want to compromise with it. We feel that this existing political, economic, and social order has been built and is maintained on the backs of the African masses, and that we will never be free until we eradicate it completely and create something else, which we'll talk about what that is. We are Pan-Africanists. And for us, Pan-Africanism, the definition, we've given you one unified socialist Africa. So we have a clear and concise example of what we're fighting for. For us, Pan-Africanism is not just all people that are Black united into some nebulous form of unity. That's not to us what Pan-Africanism is. It is a clear objective centered around our mother, Africa. It's centered around the liberation of Africa, no matter where we live on the planet Earth. That's the definition of Pan-Africanism that we are using and utilizing. And we say that Pan-Africanism has to be based around the development of scientific socialism, one unified socialist Africa. It can't be capitalist. And we'll talk about the difference between capitalism and socialism, but it can't be capitalist because we would argue that capitalism is the system that exploited us, that developed from the transatlantic slave trade and colonialism. And there's no way that that system that did that can, at any point in time, be responsible for providing us the pathway to our liberation. So we are unquestionably and unapologetically scientifically socialist. We want nothing to do with the capitalist system that's placed us in the position that we're in today. And we have an ideology. Everybody has an ideology. The only question about it is whether you recognize that you have one or not. A lot of people say, well, I don't have an ideology. I don't believe in ideology. But when you say things, for example, like it's a dog-eat-dog world, or if you want something done, you have to do it yourself. These are tenets of capitalist, individualistic, idealistic, elitist ideology. So the fact that you may not know that that's what that is, or you may not be able to identify it, that does not in any way negate the fact of what it is. That's where it comes from. And these are values that we want nothing to do with. We want to transform ourselves into a much more positive and productive way of looking at the world and participating in the world. And so we call our ideology at this point in time in history Incrumis Terreus Cabralis ideology. And you see the pictures of the three Africans on the screen from left to right. At the top, Kwame Nkrumah, Secretary sitting with Comrade Fidel Castro from Cuba, and Amilcar Cabral. Nkrumah originally from Ghana, Touré from Guinea, and Cabral from Guinea-Bissau in West Africa. And our work is to build this revolutionary consciousness all over the African world, to get Africans everywhere on the same page. And I don't know anybody anywhere who could argue that that's not something we need. That's not something that would benefit us, to get all of our people on the same page. So on the screen, you see pictures. You see the bottom left pictures of some of our comrades in Ghana from our Ghana chapter. And I'm actually in that picture in the back, the upper left with my fist in the air. That was taken last year when I was in Ghana. And then next to that is a picture of African Liberation Day that we hold all over the world every year, creating revolutionary Pan-African institutions. And that one is in Accra, Ghana. And that is our brother Comrade Kwame Sam there in a Ghana chapter on the microphone. And then next to that, where it says A-APRP Azania, South Africa, Azania is the name that our people call the country you call South Africa. Azania is a Zulu term, land of the burnt faces. So our people call it Azania. We don't call it by the colonial name South Africa. And you see in that picture our sisters from the All African Women's Revolutionary Union marching there at one of the events there in Johannesburg, what they call South Africa. And then next to that, we have our picture of our party Congress in Guinea-Bissau last year in West Africa. And two of the comrades, one from Burkina Faso and another one from our Ohio area here in our United Snakes chapter. And I was fortunate enough to be there as well. And we went everywhere. And our comrades took us, and we were met by hundreds of people throughout the countryside in Guinea-Bissau, expressing their excitement at our revolutionary Pan-African work all over the world. So that's who we are. And now we have a principle of which we operate called democratic centralism, which is just a process of ensuring that our decisions are made in a democratic fashion, and that once we have complete discussion around every decision, and we have meetings that are 12, 13 hours, right? When we were in Guinea-Bissau, that was happening. So once we hear all of the input, because everybody's perspective is important, then we have to make a decision. And that's where the centralist part comes in. So democracy is we have the voice, and centralist is that now that everybody's had that voice, we have to make a decision, and that's what we do. And so this is the way that we operate. Nothing more democratic than the process that we engage in. And so why are we necessary? Why is it necessary to have this type of organization? Why can't we just all be entrepreneurs and make money and rise up individually within the capitalist system? Why are you all talking about this revolutionary stuff where people are going to get hurt? Why are you doing this? It's anti-white. Why do you want to have this? Well, the reason why we know that the work that we're doing is necessary is, as we mentioned, African people are scattered and suffering in 120 countries worldwide today. And why is that? How is that? How did that happen? Is it just that we just love to travel and we just couldn't get enough of travel, so we just went everywhere and we just said we would stay there? Well, that would be nice if that was actually the reason, but that's not the reason. The reason why we're all over the world, and the reason why we're at the bottom of all of these societies, because that's an undisputable fact as well. Why is that? And the answer is that Africa has been colonized for 531 years. This has been taking place, where Europeans came from Europe and took over Africa placed themselves in governance in Africa and placed our people in a slave condition where when we resisted this, we were met with unspeakable violence and terrorism and barbarism against our people. In the Congo alone, over 20 million people were killed by King Leopold. And if you look at the entire continent of Africa, it's tens of millions of people when you talk about the transatlantic slave trade, which is the sole reason why Africans like myself are in the Western Hemisphere today in the United States speaking English only because of the transatlantic slave trade. But that's not the only thing that the transatlantic slave trade did. It also put in place the mechanisms that created the industrial period or industrialization period. And the industrialization period brought the capitalist system into the dominant position in the world that it is today. So the way that happened is that the seed money from the transatlantic slave trade was sent to Europe, and this money was used to establish the banking industry that dominates the world today. You see the picture on the screen, Barclays Bank, Wells Fargo Bank, Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, all of these banks are products of seed money from the transatlantic slave trade. And if you don't believe me, just go to their own websites, type in Barclays Bank and slavery. They've all had to admit this in the last 10, 15 years because of the pressure that our movement has put on them. The insurance industry, same thing. New York Life, Aetna, all of these companies started from providing insurance premiums on our ancestors to work on the plantation. Brooks Brothers Suit started by making clothes for our ancestors to wear while picking cotton. This is not our opinion. Again, all of these companies have had to acknowledge this, you all. This capitalist system did not start from hard work and industrialistness. And I'm saying this for all of you that think that your pathway to forward progress is imitating the capitalist system. This is a system that had terrorized our people for 500 years, and you're trying to imitate it? We don't want to have anything to do with this system. And even if every African in the US got rich, it could only be at the expense of the masses of our people that don't live in this backward ass country. Because that's how this system works. Because the system of colonialism and transatlantic slave trade put into practice institutional systems that produced and continue to produce the exploitation of African resources that has built the wealth of the entire Western world. 75% of the chocolate products consumed in the US today come from the barbaric cocoa industry in Ghana, in West Africa. You would not be able to participate in this program were it not for the vicious exploitation of cobalt and coltan in the Congo, in Zimbabwe, and in Azania, South Africa. So the wealth of Western capitalism, and you see the Tesla there, the steel to make that aerodynamic design, Africa. The zinc to bend the steel to make the aerodynamic design, Africa. The steel, Africa. The rubber for the tires, Africa. The oil to run the damn car, Africa. So all of this wealth comes from our exploitation. That's why we say what we have to do is seize control of our resources, and then we will have the capacity to solve all the problems that we have as a people. We won't have to be sitting around here like Malcolm X told us, begging these people for jobs when we produce all of the wealth. Africa has more mineral wealth than the rest of the world combined. The rest of the world combined. And so we know that the problem for us is that we don't control our wealth. And our movement and our work is about ensuring that we build a strong enough movement to regain control of that wealth. And we know that when that happens, all these people talking about, well, I'm Black, I'm not African, I'm African American, I'm not African, I don't want anything to do with Africa. They'll be stepping in front of us to get to Africa. They'll be out Africaning us. We know this will happen because we know that there's no loyalty to the United States of America or to Britain or France or Canada or any of these colonizing countries. These countries have treated us like garbage for centuries. So we know that's not what it is. We know that our people just want to have access to some resources. And at this point in stage in history, the capitalist countries have it. So we feel like we have to identify with that in order to advance ourselves. So this is why Snoop Dogg performs at the Trump inauguration, and this is why Beyonce performs at the Kamala Harris thing. It's all about what can I do to advance myself? Well, what we're saying is that this is not an individual thing, it's a collective thing for the masses of our people. And the way that we engage this process is through this revolutionary process. And revolution right now, we're not talking about no guns, because most of you, I wouldn't trust you with a gun. I wouldn't give you a BB gun or a cap gun right now. You're so confused in the head. We're talking about revolution right now is winning the hearts and minds of our people over to the concept that we have the right to determine our destiny. We come from the strongest and most mineral rich place on the planet Earth, and we have to organize ourselves so we can take it back. So that's what that's about. So what does A-APRP work look like, you all? Well, again, like I said, we have the Worldwide Revolutionary Pan-African Network in place, and we're building upon it. And what the picture you see on the screen, I talked about in the intro, that the work that Nkrumah's book, which you see again on the screen, was designed to do was to link up all of the revolutionary African formations into one political formation called the All African Committee for Political Coordination, or AACPC. And that, you all, is the central work of the All African People's Revolutionary Party today. So when you look at the logo in the upper left-hand corner on the screen, the logo of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, South Africa, we have people who are members of the A-APRP and members of the PAC and are working to bring that unity about. When you talk about the logo on the top right, the PAIGC, the political party founded by Amilcar Cabral, one of our ideologues, the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, that is an organization where, again, we have comrades in the A-APRP and the PAIGC. I myself am a member of both organizations. And when we go to the bottom left, the Amilcar Cabral Ideological School in Nigeria, same type of relationship. The Azanian People's Organization in Azania, same type of relationship. The Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, we can go on and on. This is the work that we're engaged in, you all. And what that shows us doing this work is that we do not lack money. Like I hear that all, I hear Africans say, oh, if we just had money, if we just had our doctors and lawyers, if we could get more doctors and lawyers, we have plenty of educated people. We have more educated people than at any time in history, all over the world. We do not lack these resources. What we lack is the proper analysis of the world we live in and our place in it. And what we lack is a collective vision and a willingness to use our skills, not just for ourselves individually, but to advance our collective freedom and liberation. That's what we lack. And we have a right to view the world that way, because there's not a single African on earth who has an education, has resources that obtain them just through their individual efforts. All of us were victimized by this colonial slave system over the last 500 years. And if you don't have to deal with that today, it's because of our people that came before us, our ancestors and our elders, because it wasn't that long ago. A lot of these people are still very much alive who suffered unimaginable tragedy in order to advance our people collectively. They suffered tragedy even though they themselves are not feeling the benefit of the sacrifices they made. They made those sacrifices so that you could get an education. They wanted you to use that education to advance our people. And it's the worst crime of humanity to be ungrateful, to take the fruits of those sacrifices and use them for yourself and do nothing to advance the masses of your people. So the surefire way to develop that collective vision that we're aiming for is to prioritize mass revolutionary political education. And so that's what we do in the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And we do this work that we're engaged in on 3 continents and the Caribbean today. And we're expanding English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Swahili. This is what's needed is for us to continue this work around our consciousness. So I'll give you an example. What we're doing right now, and we have to say this because people are like, well, you revolution, you want guns. Well, without question, the people who have spent the last 500 years stealing everything that we have, they're not going to give that up. They're not going to come to a meeting and we give this history to them and they say, you know what, you're absolutely right. We have done this. So the next meeting, when do we want to meet again? And we'll figure out the transfer of wealth and power. It's not going to happen like that. It's never happened like that in history. Nobody voluntarily surrenders power. That doesn't happen. So there, unfortunately, will have to be a phase of this that includes armed struggle, but that's a very small element of it. And we're nowhere near to the point where we have to seriously think about that happening right now because we're not prepared for that. Because the majority of our people have no consciousness even about the things that I've talked about up to this point. So that is our struggle right now, is to get this consciousness in the hearts and minds of the masses of our people. Get us on the same page. We had an event yesterday, and I told the people assembled there that my own biological sister, 2 years older than me, known me my whole life, I've known her my whole life, right? And we have a good relationship, even though we have nothing in common. You know, she doesn't live her life the way I live my life. I don't live my life the way she lives her life. But we have a decent relationship. But I told the people yesterday, if the police went to her house right now and they told her they needed her to cooperate with them about me, it's not like my expectation would be she would rise up and say, well, you know, my brother is doing good work for the masses of our people. That I have strong doubts that would happen. What's most likely is she would say something like, yeah, he always was into that black stuff. I knew it was something wrong, and your family members, you can laugh at me, but your family members would do the same exact thing. Most of them. You have some who wouldn't, but most of them would do the exact same thing. And that's because we lack consciousness. That's the priority work that we have to do right now. We glorify think about this for a second. I want to ask those of you that are living in the United States of America. You disagree when I say we lack consciousness. But think about this right now. The majority, even if you don't, and some of you probably think like this too, but the majority of your family, friends, co-workers, everybody, right now, they see the people in the U.S. military, and the U.S. military as an institution, as something that is pride-worthy, that these people have sacrificed something for them, and that they should honor these people because of these people serving in the U.S. military. And this is an outstanding example of the lack of consciousness that exists in this society. What has the U.S. military done to advance the life of a single person in the U.S.? I mean, if your response is going to be the capitalist talking points that they've stopped terrorism, they've stopped communism, like, you're in the wrong place if that's the best you can do to tell us about how they've done anything to advance the quality of our lives as African people. You have to be insane to believe that. I mean, there's no evidence to support that at all. The war in Vietnam, the Vietnamese people, as Muhammad Ali said in 1967, they ain't never called us the N-word. They have no role in our oppression whatsoever. The people of Iraq and Afghanistan have done nothing to repress the rights of African people anywhere on earth. They've done nothing to do that. The people in Panama, when they attacked Panama, nothing. The people in Grenada, are African people? Nothing. The people in Panama, African people. These people, Libya, where they bombed in the 80s and blew up out of submission under the Obama administration in 2011, that's Africa. That was the most productive country in Africa when they destroyed it. So, what has the U.S. military done to advance the interests of African people anywhere? Nothing. Nothing at all. In fact, all they've done is be mercenaries, killing millions of people, destroying countries all over the world just to advance the US's political and economic agenda. And this is the same for all the imperialist countries: Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, the Zionist state of Israel. All of them wage war to advance their political, economic, and social interests. They do nothing to help the interests of African people. Nothing. What? So you can't name one thing they've done to advance the interests of African people on the planet Earth. Please write us and tell us what they've done. We're happy to tell you how confused you are, and we'll recommend a good therapist for you, because you obviously need one if you really believe that. But yet that's a common belief here. Thank you for your service. What the hell are you talking about? This is what people believe in this backward country. So this is why we say political education is so important, so that people can understand that we should not be against Vietnamese people fighting for their self-determination. We should not be against the people of Cuba fighting. We should stand with them. The Vietnamese people stood with us. That's why you saw the movie Dead Presidents, Lorenz Tate, Chris Tucker, Keith David, right? You saw that movie. And when they were in Vietnam, they picked up the leaflets, "Black man, go home. This is not your war." That actually happened, you all. That was real. And it was a strategy on behalf of the Viet Minh Front, the front in Vietnam that organized the military resistance against U.S. imperialism. And it was the brainchild of Nguyen Ao Thach, who is most commonly known as Ho Chi Minh, who lived in the U.S. in the 1920s and went to school at Columbia University and lived in Harlem, New York, and went to the street corners and listened to Marcus Mosiah Garvey speak in Harlem in the 1920s. This Vietnamese man understood the racist character of this backward society and used that as a propaganda tool for the African troops who, unfortunately, were forced to go to Vietnam and fight on behalf of U.S. imperialism. And it caused a lot of dissension on behalf of the African troops. There's a brother even wrote a book called Bloods that outlines it. And this is the reason why these Africans in Vietnam begin to adopt this. Talk to African vets in Vietnam, and they'll tell you they begin to adopt this perspective of, I just got to get out of here alive and make sure my homies do the same. It was not about, oh, we're fighting for American democracy against communism, because that's bullshit. And it had nothing to do with reality. So this is why political education is so important. And now we fast forward to today. We don't have to talk about 60 years ago in the Vietnam War. We can talk about today. Many Africans running around here talking about the Palestinians ain't did nothing for us. I don't need to support their state. You sound like an idiot. Anytime somebody starts talking like that, you're telling us immediately that you know nothing about what's happening in the world today. Even if every single Palestinian on earth hated African people, which I know that's not true, because we do the work. And when you do the work, you come in contact with other people who do the work, and you begin to support each other's struggle. We had an event yesterday for African people here in the city I live in. It was an African event. It was advertised as that. African people came to the event, and Palestinians came, and they said, just to express our support and solidarity. Now, I know this because I do the work. So, you come to me with that weak, oh, they don't do anything. Like, you don't know. Well, they don't do anything to support you because you're in your house behind a keyboard in the dark. They can't even get in there and talk to you. So that's why you believe that nonsense. But it doesn't matter either way, because They are fighting the Zionist state of Israel, which exploits Africa to place itself in a position to continue to exploit the Palestinians. One of the main resources that is produced out of the state of Israel is polished diamonds. They produce 40% of the polished diamonds. You sitting there getting married, you can't wait to go buy it, and you're buying diamonds polished in the Zionist state of Israel that are stolen from Central and Southern Africa, stolen from the Congo, stolen from Zimbabwe. There's no goddamn diamonds in New York or California. Those are African diamonds stolen from us, exploited by the Zionist state of Israel. And so if the Palestinians defeat that state, that helps our struggle. Objectively, this is true. If the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere have victory against this backward empire, that helps our struggle. Objectively true. If when we achieve Pan-Africanism, that helps their struggles. Objectively true. We're scientists about this. We're not operating off of no sentimentality and no social media sound bites. We're studying the world so we can understand the forces that shape it so that we can understand what we need to do to shape it in our own interests. And so we're building this All-African Committee for Political Coordination. And of course, a part of that, as we go through that process and get to that stage, there is an All-African People's Revolutionary Army that Nkrumah talks about in the book. And that would be the force that would facilitate the military action. But you ain't got to worry about that now. We got to get the weapons we need right now are books. And I'll just tell you a quick story of Comrade Brother Sekou Neblet, longtime cadre in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, lives in Ghana, longtime member of the Black Panther Party here, Field Marshal for the Black Panther Party in the 60s, one of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee SNCC singers in the early 60s. When I go to Ghana, I stay with my big brother, and he told me a story once that when he and Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, were in Guinea, with Kwame Nkrumah, after Nkrumah's government was overthrown by the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, we call them criminals in action. They got guns and they went to see Brother Nkrumah, and they were like, "We're ready to take you back to Ghana and put you back in power." And he said, Kwame Nkrumah slowly got up from his chair and took the guns from each of them. There were, I don't know how many of them there were, and he took the guns from them and he handed them books. That is so representative of what we need to be doing right now, right? If you're not regularly studying our people's condition all over the world, and you're not doing it with other people with a design of using the information to advance our struggle, I'm sorry, I love you, but you're a part of the problem. You're a part of the problem. And don't tell me you don't have time. That's an insult. Who has time? None of us have time. I mean, when my daughter was young, I was raising her. I worked full time, always worked full time, always been a full time wage slave. I did this work all the time and was in graduate school. So don't tell me about time. That's a question of organization. Even now, I still work full time. At least for another couple of years, I'll be doing that. I still work full time doing A-APRP work, and I'm right now writing my 6th book. And we were taking care of my mother-in-law before she unfortunately passed away last month. So don't talk to me about time. Everybody has time to dedicate. The people who put you in the position you're enjoying right now in your life, if they would have been as selfish as you and said, "I don't have time," your ass would be nowhere near where you are right now. So I'm sorry, but that's offensive when you talk about your time is not organized. I'll agree with you there, but you got time to contribute to our people's liberation. And all of us, if all of us gave time, you wouldn't have to give as much time as you do. I wouldn't have to give as much time as I do. So just the structure of our party is based around our work study circles. Everyone in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party participates in a work study circle. And that's where we read and study a specifically organized book list. It has sections of books, 4 or 5 books under each section for African history, 4 or 5 books under each section for colonialism, neo-colonialism, Zionism, patriarchy, 4 or 5 books under each section for scientific socialism, 4 or 5 books under each section for Pan-Africanism, nationalism. And you read each of these books. You read 70 pages every 2 weeks. You meet every 2 weeks. That's 5 pages a day. And we rotate, all the people in your group rotate facilitatorship. Because again, we're trying to build collective leadership. We're not trying to build individual superstars. We're trying to build a mass political party of collective cadre. So that's the structure. We have a world geopolitical section where you study events in the world today. And then we have a party affairs section where you talk about what's going on in the work in the APRP. That's our structure. Everyone participates in a work study circle, no matter where we are on the planet Earth, no matter what language we speak, what religion we practice or don't practice. If you're in the APRP, you're participating in a circle. We have 3 committees called Political Education, Program, and Administration. Everybody in the party is expected to participate in one of these committees. And then we have task forces that are connected to the committees and allow you to work with people all over the world doing the work to build the party. We had a session this morning on orientations, and there's people on there from 6 or 7 countries. We're participating about how we orientate people into the All African People's Revolutionary Party process, right? And we have an All African Women's Revolutionary Union in A-APRP, which we'll talk a lot more about in the next slide. Shakura would have done that if she had been here today, but since she's not, I'll do my best to give it justice. And I don't see that as anything out of the ordinary, because the proper analysis is that the advancement of women and marginalized genders is a responsibility of everyone in the APRP, not just women and marginalized genders. So it's an honor for me to talk about the All African Women's Revolutionary Union. Men cannot be members of the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, but I see myself as doing the work to support the All African Women's Revolutionary Union. We, at the present stage, right now, we're going to change that, as we have women we've orientated into work study. But at the present state, last summer, we didn't have any women active in the APRP here in Sacramento. We still did Pan-African Women's Day, and we're going to do it again this summer and do it larger than we did last year. So the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, every woman and marginalized gender person, the women are automatically members of the AWRU upon orientation into the party. Women are members of the AWRU, and the primary work of the AWRU is to ensure that the participation of women and marginalized gender people is a priority within the party for everything that we do, right? An example of that is 51% of all party resources automatically go to the AWRU, i.e. we just had a recent delegation of organizers go to, at the invitation of the Sahrawi women in Algeria. So this is an example of the 51%. Like, we want to make sure that our resources are going to advance the question of women in the APRP. And also an example, at our party congress I mentioned we had last year in Guinea-Bissau, it was actually in 2023, the party congress decision there that we made was to ensure that all decisions that are made reflect a voice that speaks in the interests of women. Even if there are no women in the room, we still have to ensure that that voice is a reflection of every decision, or else the decision, isn't valid. And again, as I mentioned, men are responsible to uphold the work of the All African Women's Revolutionary Union. And for example, we have an anti-patriarchy task force. Patriarchy is a system of institutionalized discrimination against women and marginalized gender people. And the role of the anti-patriarchy task force is to support the work of the AWRU. And, I saw this man, I had a shirt that said F patriarchy. I saw this man and he said, well, what is that? And I said, well, it's a system of institutionalized discrimination against women and marginalized gender. He said, well, that's not a thing. And I said, 5 seconds ago, you didn't even know what the word meant. Now you're an expert. That's the problem in this society. That is the problem in this society, that kind of arrogance. Don't be that person. But an example that I mentioned, men are responsible, is I'm not bragging. I'm just honored to do this work. And so I was one of the co-founders of the anti-patriarchy task force that exists to support the All African Women's Revolutionary Union. And I haven't been active in the task force recently because, we had a lot of changes, particularly around, I mentioned, my mother-in-law, but, and now I need time to just, heal really from everything that's been happening the last couple of years. And I'll go back to helping with the task force, but certainly was very much involved the first couple of years of its existence, and instrumental in helping us get a lot of new books added to the book list. And we have annual institutions that support this question, like Pan-African Women's Day, which we do every summer all over the world. And institutions are important on every level because we have to understand that we are fighting a struggle. Sorry, my computer is flipping out. We are fighting a struggle, again, for the control of the hearts and minds of our people. And institutions are instrumental in helping wage this fight, because the capitalist system, a system where the means of production are owned and controlled for private profit, it has a massive propaganda mechanism. 24/7, 365 days a year, it is propagandizing us. Well, African, they don't want you in Africa. You can't go to Africa, they don't want you there. Women, you can't have a voice in this, you don't need to worry about that. You're Americans. Even though America doesn't respect you, you need to respect them. Everything about America, you need to respect. Whether America respects you or not is irrelevant. You need to just respect America. And if you don't, you need to go somewhere else. You need to go back to Africa, that poor, poverty-stricken place where nothing works the way it should work. This is the kind of propaganda that is the foundation of capitalism, not just in the United States, but all over the capitalist world, all over Europe, Canada, Australia, the Zionist state of Israel. This is the propaganda. But the propaganda is worldwide. So white supremacy is a system. So yes, people in Asia are practice white supremacy. People in Europe practice it. People in the Americas, indigenous people, practice white supremacy against African people. African people practice white supremacy against African people. One of the main institutions of exploiting the African masses was to dehumanize us and separate us from understanding our African history and culture. And the way they did that was to move us away from Africa intellectually and spiritually. So when we first came to this hemisphere, we had a clear understanding that we were African. The first church that we founded in this country was called, and is still called today, the African Methodist Episcopalian Church, the AME Church. It's not African American Church. It's not Black Methodist. It's African, because we understood that's who we were. The first recognized organization we had in this U.S. was the Free Africa Society, not the Free Blacks Society. This has been a propaganda effort to move us away from Africa. So much so that I can say confidently in 2025 that more of our people in this country would be comfortable referring to us through the N-word than as African. That is a propaganda effort. If you can't see it with that, then there's no hope for you. You can't see it with that example, there's no hope for you. And we'll sit there as dumb as we are and argue, well, it's our own word. How can it be your word when the slave master gave you the language? And he gave you the language so that you would serve his. You don't even know how to think in an African language. You don't even know how to have a spiritual foundation in an African language. Everything we know, goddammit, is European, because they set us up like that so that they can ensure that we would act on our own volition in their interests. And that's what we do every day. sitting around here sounding stupid as hell, talking about, well, we've redefined the N-word. What is your evidence that it's been redefined? What are all these people calling us the N-word, us calling each other the N-word? We build all these wonderful institutions doing that. You got to be out of your mind. It is not working. Clearly, it's not. It's only working for people that are really need counseling to get beyond your confusion. I don't care if you get offended. I'm offended. Every time I hear that kind of nonsense, I'm offended. So if you're offended, we're going to share the damn well so that we can wake up. So that we can wake up. I was just listening to a record by the artist Cam, and he was talking about he in the lyrics of the song, he said, I put wake black people up over gangster beats. And I'm like, whatever it takes, because we are really like displaying Stockholm syndrome with everything that we do. And if you don't know what that is, you need to do some work and figure out what it is. All right. But that's what we're saying. We need institutions that advance the values that we need to become healthy. So we have them. Pan-African Women's Day. We have African Liberation Day every May. And the purpose of African Liberation Day, like Pan-African Women's Day, is to advance these notions that we're the same people all over the earth, and our future is tied to our ability to come together, unify, and to focus around our mother, Africa. That's where our salvation lies. That's the whole point of African Liberation Day. And when I was passing out flyers for one of our events, the brother, he saw the word African on there, and he will, what does that word mean? I'm like, man, we're way past that. Like you literally want to sit here and argue about the word, where the word came from. We're way past that. I don't give a damn what you call it. You can call it dumbass people's, no, don't call it that. You can call it party people land if you want to. We're party people. That's our point. Our point is, whatever you call Africa, our future is connected to what happens to that place. Call it whatever makes you feel better. I don't care what you call it. I just know we need to be connected to that place, whatever you need to call it. You can call it by its original name, Akebalon. I don't want to call it by the European, whatever you need to do, do it. But recognize that we're connected to that land base. And whatever we do is how far we go will be based upon how far that land base goes. How far we go has nothing to do with what these European-dominated capitalist societies go. That has nothing to do with the more they advance, we don't advance. When has that ever happened? When is this country, the United Snakes advanced and African people have advanced? Everything, I was telling the reporter that came to our event yesterday, everything we have gotten in this country, we've had to shed blood for. This country's given us, he's a European, he's like, well, there's been some advancements. I'm like, yeah, that we did. Your country did nothing to do that for us. Everything we've gotten here, we name one thing we've gotten that we didn't have to shed blood for. We had to shed blood, as Kwame Ture said, to sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store and eat a meal at the counter. We had to shed blood to go to school. We had to shed blood to live where we wanted to live. We had to shed blood to work where we wanted to work. Nothing was given to us. And we always have fought back that way. And that's what I told him. And he said, well, I can't name anything. I'm like, so I told him, I said, well, then shut up talking about that. Don't come in here with us talking about that. You're welcome to come here, but don't come in here with that kind of nonsense, or else you got to go. Because we're not those kind of Negroes that you're used to dealing with. We're not the kind that are going to say, well, your truth is your truth. Whatever you want to believe, you can disrespect us. We're going to show you the love of Jesus. To hell with that. If you disrespect me, I'm going to disrespect your ass twice as hard. And sleep very well that night after that happens. Very well. And not have all this psychological trauma that so many of us have, because I know how to stand on dignity. And much of that I've learned from this process that this organization has provided for me for the last 41 years. So that's who we are. That's what we're working to do. And we want to encourage you to get engaged in it. Don't let me frighten you off. You should focus on the mission. And if you're down with the mission, then you should want to find out more. We're not set tripping on anything, but we do think that you should find out what is this All African People's Revolutionary Party about. And you can't, the purpose of these weekly workshops is to give you a taste of it. We can't explain all of our work in 1 hour. That's not possible. But hopefully you get inspired enough and you want to know. And from that, we can share with you how you can get more information. So we want to ask you to do that several ways. One is join us next week. Again, we're here every week, same time, same place, same vehicles of communication, same platforms. And next Sunday, February 9th, our topic is going to be, we don't need scum validating our history. We don't need scum validating our history. These people are bad, making every attempt they can to make us self-conscious about talking about our history. To hell with that. You know, these people are not in a position, they don't have the moral authority to dictate anything to us. And if you let them do that, that's work we need to do with you to lift up your confidence, self-esteem, and dignity so that you can tell these people to go to hell the way we do. We're going to talk about our history. We don't care what you ban. You can ban human existence. We're still going to meet as human beings and educate our youth about our history. We're not listening to you. You don't listen to us. Why would we listen to you? You have never demonstrated any humane concern for our interests as human beings. So understand that we are not paying attention to you. We are moving forward to advance our people. And we are down with every peace and justice loving people who are willing to do the same, no matter what nationality you are. We are down with that because we know a lot of our people that look like us are the enemies of African advancement. They're just trying to get a paycheck. So we ask you to go to the QR code in the upper left-hand corner, the red and white one. And if you scan that one, you will get information about all of our A-APRP programs like this one. Maybe you don't like this one, you can go to some of the other ones. There are many of them. So check them out. And also we have a shop. We sell merchandise to finance our struggle, our work throughout Africa. We have African Liberation Day coming up. We fund our commemorations all over the African continent. So go there and buy a hoodie or a t-shirt that is really providing a revolutionary and a positive message. And that way you're supporting independent revolutionary African organization, a good thing to do. And then you can see Hood Communist there, Revolutionary Pan-African blog. Check that out. And then getting back to getting more information about the All African People's Revolutionary Party, at the bottom left, you can go to aprp-intl.org. And from there, you can watch a video. You can learn more about the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And you can decide if you want to come to an orientation session. And you don't lose anything. All you do is gain information. So we strongly encourage you to do that. And then in the bottom right QR code, the black and white one, there is an opportunity for you to become a sponsor of Burkina Books, which is one of the projects we have on the ground in Burkina Faso in West Africa. We are building our work out to Mali and Niger and all through the Sahel region, in that Sahel region, the West African region. So we invite you to become a monthly sponsor. Sponsor as much as you can, $5 US, 10, 50, 100, 1,000, whatever you can afford. We're buying books to engage in this revolutionary political education that I've spent the last 55, 56 minutes talking to you about. And then in the upper right-hand corner, I have a book that I wrote 3 years ago, a guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence, a guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. In the coming weeks, we're going to roll out a joint program here where I live with the group, the Community Builders Center here, and we're going to have classes on political education. We're going to have self-defense. I've got a lot of people reaching out like, we want to learn collective self-defense, and we want to do that. But the only way that I fund that portion of the work is through the sale of this book. So unfortunately, you can only get it on Amazon. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear about how you don't shop at Amazon when you just went to Shell gas station to put gas in your damn car. I mean, I didn't fall in with the rain yesterday. We're trying to use capitalism's tools. If you put Shell gas in your car to go and organize for liberation, you don't see that as a contradiction. So you should be intelligent enough to understand that if I use my book to advance revolutionary consciousness through Amazon, I don't see that as a contradiction. Grow up and get off that nonsense, all right? Support the damn book. It's only $8. We use that for our anti-fascist work. I do a lot of that work. So any effort you make to support that is greatly appreciated. We appreciate each and every one of you. We ask you to keep your head on a swivel out here and to join an organization working for justice. We appreciate you. Come back next week. Forward ever, backwards never.